The message arrives like a spark in a dry political landscape. Iran warns of an endless quagmire, not a casual warning, not diplomatic noise, but a phrase loaded with memory, history, and warning signs that echo far beyond the Gulf. Because behind it is a new escalation, reported through BBC News live coverage, now where threats tied to Iran's oil and gas infrastructure have reopened one of the most dangerous fault lines in modern geopolitics. And the question is no longer just what was said, it's what happens if words turn into movement. For decades, the Middle East has been shaped by a single invisible pressure point: energy. Oil fields that fuel global economies, gas routes that heat homes across continents, pipelines that quietly influence inflation, politics, even elections, thousands of miles away. Now imagine that system becoming the center of direct confrontation again. Iran's warning uses a phrase the world has heard before: quagmire, a trap, a conflict that does not end cleanly, that expands, absorbs, and reshapes everyone involved. And that's where tension begins to widen. Because this is not just about Iran and the United States in isolation. It is about what sits between them, the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical energy choke points on Earth, a narrow corridor where a massive share of global oil shipments passes every single day. A place where even small disruption can trigger global price shock within hours. Oil markets don't wait for clarity. They react to fear, and fear is already building. According to BBC reporting, rhetoric has intensified after statements suggesting pressure on Iran's energy exports and infrastructure. Iran's response frames it not as negotiation, but escalation, warning that any attempt to target its oil and gas sector would not remain contained. But what does not remain contained mean in a world already running on fragile supply chains? This is where the story shifts from diplomacy to system risk, because modern global energy is not just extraction, it is interconnected dependence. Europe's industrial stability, Asia's manufacturing rhythm, America's consumer pricing, all sitting on flows that originate in regions like this. Interrupt one major node, and the effect does not stay local. It spreads, slow at first, then suddenly visible. Energy traders adjust expectations, shipping insurance rates rise, naval patrols increase in key waters, satellite monitoring intensifies. Every actor starts preparing for a scenario no one wants to name. And yet, another layer forms beneath it: strategic signaling. Iran's warning is not only about immediate retaliation, it is deterrence. A message designed to raise the cost of escalation before action ever begins. But deterrence only works when both sides believe the other will hesitate, and that is where uncertainty becomes dangerous. Because history in the Gulf has shown how quickly tensions translate into global economic shock. One disrupted shipment, one damaged facility, even one perception of risk, can ripple into global markets within hours. And in today's economy, that means everyone. Still, the deeper question remains unspoken. What happens when energy infrastructure becomes the target of pressure itself? Because energy is not just revenue, it is leverage, survival, and strategic power. Any threat to it is not seen as policy, but as existential pressure. And existential pressure rarely produces predictable outcomes. It escalates, sometimes slowly, sometimes all at once. Meanwhile, the world watches a familiar pattern return: rising rhetoric, market sensitivity, military signaling in surrounding waters, diplomatic statements that avoid closure while refusing de-escalation. A balance that is held before, but never without risk. Because in modern geopolitics, the real battlefield is not always visible. It is anticipation, pricing risk before it happens, preparing for what might come. And as this cycle continues, one reality becomes harder to ignore. Even if no action follows, the system has already reacted. Markets have adjusted. Naval presence has shifted. Political positions have hardened. And Iran's warning about an endless quagmire becomes more than a phrase. It becomes a description of how quickly modern systems can begin to move. Once pressure enters the structure, and the final question remains hanging in silence. In a world disconnected, can energy conflict ever stay contained? Or does every warning already carry the shape of a global reaction, waiting to unfold?